welcome to this week's episode of the Heroes Table. We have a few changes for this episode specifically because we were kind of taken by surprise by the what's it called, time zone
Yes,
time
daylight
thing.
saving.
Yeah, daylight saving. That's it. Yes. So this episode is a bit later, or it's an hour late compared to the UTC timestamp. It's pretty much the same time for everyone who's using relative time. So yeah, next week's episode will be an hour earlier. So yeah, it'll still be the same time in UTC, but relative time one hour earlier. Yes, daylight screw up time, exactly.
Correct.
So yeah, apologize for that. You will also notice that we don't have webcams today, and that's because Discord works in a fun way when there's only two people in the call. So it didn't look good with the webcams. So today will be more of a podcast-ish, where we'll kind of do the talking and we'll take questions, and you'll just be able to see our the green circles on our avatars as we speak. And we also don't have Midnight with us because because of the whole timing thing, he had to leave. So it's what it is, but we'll still get through it. We still have something very exciting for today, so nothing like for the specific things that we wanted to go through has been impacted by it. It's all timing, basically. All right, so without further ado, as always, leave your questions in the chat, and we will get to the questions when, if it makes sense during the topic that we discuss. We can take some of those questions. Otherwise, we have a section dedicated to questions and answers, and then we will definitely get through the questions there. So you don't have to wait with your questions till the end, but you can also do that, definitely. But we'll be looking out for questions pretty much all the way through. So with that out of the way, let's check today's agenda. So we just went through our introduction, and today's topic is the assassin. So we'll be talking about the assassin today, and as I said, we will be ending as usual with a Q&A section. Well, yeah. So. Oh, and I also forgot to introduce us, actually. As usual, I'm Hisha, and with me is Taluvius. And as I said, not Midnight. Alright.
Hello, everybody.
So, the assassin. Take it away.
All right. So, with the assassin, we delve into a little more micro characterization rather than world building. We were focusing on the assassin named Saren. And what's interesting about Saren is that he works for a assassin guild, which we've cleverly called the Liquidators Guild, which I thought was kind of funny.
No, definitely.
And he runs jobs for that guild around eternity, and he does jobs that are both sketchy and not sketchy. They're all kind of sketchy.
So kind of like a mercenary in a way, but he doesn't really care much about what it is.
Pretty much. It's a job, right? So he gets called upon to do the job. He usually doesn't know who he's working for, and he gets paid when the job is done. And I took a lot of ideas from modern games, modern stories, just specifically like the Assassin's Guild from Skyrim, you know, those type of games where you have this, group of people that are essentially a not necessarily a company per se, but they all work together under some leader who, runs the organization, giving out jobs and tasks for people to do. And in this situation, Saren's been given a task to break into the king's treasury. And he's not entirely sure who's, hired him. All he knows is he's supposed to break in and get a special coin for the customer who's hired him. And we find him trying to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. I just got a text or a sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay. I'm used to Midnight sharing the the talking duties, so yeah. The we find him, breaking into the treasury to try and find the item in question. And in doing so, he finds that he's been given a distraction by a large individual out in the street. And at the time, we don't know who that person is until we get further in the story, but it provides some distraction for Saren to get in. And so he makes his way inside, and he ends up finding his way down to the treasury, opens the door, and finds some Knights of the Dark Echelon inside, and finds out that they were set there to catch not necessarily him, but somebody they were expecting. And unfortunately for him, he's the one that's there, so he has to deal with the knights. And he finds that after dispatching them, that he is able to get to the item in question and finds a letter. And the letter instructs him to go to a tavern at a certain time to meet. All it says is a letter carved G in the lid of the wooden box, and then on the letter it just says G. So he makes his way to the tavern, and he comes to find that the person that hired him has kind of set him up to retrieve this to see if he could do it. And so it's almost a test, if you will. And he's come to find that, okay, I've done that. What do you want? And then that goes on into, we find out that he's meeting with somebody who has had interactions with the Mad King, as we call him. And they developed a currency that was essentially created to help with the kingdom in terms of trading value. And the coins were eventually, before the king went mad, he was trying to help his citizens, and so they developed this. But unfortunately, after the problems, I guess we haven't touched on why he's Mad King yet, so I probably shouldn't do that. That's still to come in another story.
I believe we've heard of the Mad King before, but I don't think we have specifically discussed his character yet.
Yeah, no, we haven't, so I won't spoil that. Anyway, the gentleman here who Saren's meeting has worked with the king in developing this currency. And the king, when he went bad, made it illegal to own it, and then had it all confiscated and put in the castle. It's a whole nother story. But anyway, so the gentleman is hiring Saren to figure out how to free the coins, if you will.
Mm.
And so he's not too sure about it, obviously, because it's way outside his normal job description. But the value of the coins have increased rapidly because of their kind of legendary nature at this point, and because they're so scarce to find.
It's kind of like an artifact at this point.
Yeah, so him finding this one was like extreme. I mean, just having one, which he found, is extremely valuable, and to have a ton of them would kind of makes him think this might be a good play. If he could get enough, he could, retire and get away from this.
It's like mining Bitcoin back in 29.
Right. So being that we are in the crypto space, we are trying to play with some of those ideas and bring in a little fourth wall breaking in some ways, to tie it in with the actual ecosystem of the game. And so we've called the coins in question glory, and it very much ties into the reward that you can get when you play the game. And so we've tied those things together. And then we will find out as the story goes on, like, how the assassin ends up working with the other characters and getting to, one of the bosses being the Mad King eventually. So it's kind of setting up a overlapping arc for the assassin.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting also to hear, like you mentioned, that that glory had kind of become illegal to own, so the king had like gathered all of it. But now we're getting it as rewards for doing things. So like transitioning from that, like from it being illegal to it now being rewarded, I think is an interesting story that could be explored as well.
So we then tying that in with a character that we've released that everybody knows is the Gambler, and we haven't actually done the story yet for the Gambler, or I should say we haven't made it public. Yeah. But we do know that he is on the other side of this group of people, because we have the Valkyrie on one side, who's bringing people together, and we have the Gambler on the other side for their own reasons, bringing things together. And so, one thing that we're thinking about is just the idea of making the story break through the barrier of reality to where, like, the Gambler pays glory to tasks that the players do, right? And so depending on what what adventure you're on or what campaign you're on, will determine the amount of glory, because not everything rewards that. So it's very scarce, and it's very much tied to the gameplay, playing the game. So we just thought that would be a really interesting way to intertwine that.
Definitely. And I guess gold is then just something that is always around in these kingdoms, right? It's just like the normal currency, and then they try to make this new currency on top of gold.
Correct.
So we have a question in the chat that says, you guys have a history with D&D, and I know that you have had some, I believe you have answered before. I have done very little. I have a friend who is doing Dungeons and Dragons, and we have had him as a game master for like 2 times for short campaigns in my friend group. But that's kind of the limit to my experience with D&D, but I do know about it.
So I'm old, and I've been reading D&D novels since I don't know, 35 years now, probably maybe more. I'm 46, so.
Hmm.
But I've read, and then just general, I read a lot of fantasy novels, so pretty much all of the ones that people would be familiar with, I've read over the years, and I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since I was 15. I do dungeon or do DM a game weekly, and I write backstories and all that kind of good stuff. So, and then obviously playing video games. Been doing that for a long time too. Dragonlance, yes. That definitely probably the first book I ever read was actually Huma, which was a Legends book from Dragonlance. That was way back.
I do also enjoy like the way that you interact with the game in Dungeons and Dragons. Like it's different from many other like board games or what you call, I don't know if you call Dungeons and Dragons a board game. I guess it kind of is, but I know for a fact that it's a role playing game, but I don't know what the platform of the game is. Like I suppose board game is the closest. Even
well,
you're not really playing on a board though.
So it's really evolved too that you can play on a board, and a lot of people do. I do. I run a game online via a program called Fantasy Grounds, and so it creates a virtual tabletop.
I see.
And so you do have like maps that you can look at, and you have characters that are tokens and enemies that are tokens, and it's essentially software that can do facilitate the rules of the game. And so, yeah, I mean, it used to be that you just, everyone had a piece of paper. Back when I started a long time ago, we had a piece of paper, and, there wasn't any game, or board to it at the time, That's changed a bit now, so.
Yeah, we also, the first time I played with my friends, it was also like paper. We had paper character sheets. And the last time we played it, which is a few months ago, we also used some software, some website, maybe the one you mentioned. I don't recall what it was called. But it was also like to keep track of the character sheets or character stats and stuff. And yes, you are correct, Cosmic Fire. I was thinking of tabletop. I just forgot the word. But yes, I did mean tabletop role-playing game when I said board game.
But yeah, that's where a lot of this comes from, is just years and years of reading books and running games and playing games. And
yeah, I've also been playing games for a long time. Yeah, I've mostly real-time strategy games, but I also have liked some first-person shooters, like Half-Life as the main one, I think. Stuff like that. I haven't really been much of a PvP player in first-person shooters, like Counter-Strike and such. Has never really appealed to me. It's fun for a couple of rounds, but I get tired of it fast because it's so repetitive, in my opinion. Like I can respect that other people find it more amusing than I do, but it's just not really for me. Besides maybe like a couple or 3 rounds or something, then I kind of get bored with it.
Yeah, my hand-eye coordination's terrible. That's what happens.
So, do you have more to the Assassin story? It's just if you had more planned. Otherwise, I can ask some questions to it.
I'm good with questions. I think we've went through most everything without like reading the story itself. So.
No, it's just that we got on a tangent a bit, so I just wanted to know if we had to go back to the story or.
But, I'm good with questions, or we can talk about whatever anybody wants to talk about in the chat. Or I know today's a little bit off because everything, so whatever I'm good with.
No, we'll just have a chill episode. So one of my questions are. Usually we have some kind of connection between some characters. At least we've had a pattern of that. Can we at this time relate the assassin to another character that we have discussed previously or will be discussing? Well, except the Mad King, I guess.
So the gambler interacts initially with two other characters.
Okay.
One is the gambler, and the other is the executioner. And neither of those two we've discussed yet, but the assassin story interconnects with those two.
I see. Okay. Then I also so we were talking about the guild that the assassin is part of, and I think you mentioned something about the leader of the guild. I think was it the leader that gave him missions and stuff, or something like that? Yeah. So what is the assassin's relation to the leader of the guild? Like, is it just this guy is the one that gives me assignments, or like do we know this person better? Is he my friend, like, to the assassin, or like what is their relationship or relation in general?
I think it'd be more of a employee-employer type situation.
But the assassin would have been in the guild for a long time, right? Or like at this point?
Yeah. So like you come in as an apprentice and then you work your way up by performing tasks. And then you get to a point where you'd be considered a master and you get the harder tasks. And Saren would be what we would consider a master.
I see. Okay, so we have a question in the chat from Bigger Portion, who says, without being speculative, do you have a plan to become bigger than Axie? I've seen it teased somewhere. There are many big and small play to earn projects coming out, and the competition will be fierce. So it is my opinion that I believe that we would be able to compete with Axie. I don't know about getting bigger than Axie. I think it's possible. That's just my opinion. But I don't know if it really matters that much. It depends what you're looking at, like in what sense. Will we be getting more players? I suppose that depends. I think Axie has declining players right now because the hype has kind of died down, and I think the same will probably happen to Eternity as well, where we will have a lot of players and then it'll die down because of the hype, and then hopefully the game will be entertaining enough that new players will come in again, so it'll kind of reverse again and start going up from there, and then it'll like organically grow. So it's not growing because of hype, but it's actually growing because people are enjoying it. And I guess we'll see if Axie can pull that off as well. And then I guess it's just a matter of who grows the most. Like if we look on it as a bigger, like who has the biggest player base.
Yeah, I've got some things to say about this. And everyone probably knows this, but it was a third party that said that. Like Eternity didn't say that, just to make sure everybody understands that. Someone else wrote an article about after demoing the game and talking to our developers. So their opinion is that we've got something special, which was, the intent of that. And the reason why it's special is actually in multiple ways. One, at the fact that the game isn't chain dependent. We can drop it on most any chain we want to. The tokenomics, which we've had some good discussions in the Treasury chat of late on how aggressive that our tokenomics are to keeping value in the game. And I don't know if anyone is as aggressive as we are. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen anybody respond with oh yeah, this game's doing that. Because currently with the current version of the white paper, we're looking at around 80% of all revenue being paired with glory and buying back glory. So, that's a massive amount of revenue staying in the game. And I don't know if anyone else is pushing that hard to do that. Because we look at games all the time, obviously, with what we're doing, and so we're always like, what's the outcome of this game with the tokenomics? Is that we look at it all the time, and if it's first in, first out wins, then it's concerning, right?
Mhm.
Because that's a good way to kill everything. It has to be, sustainable. And so you add in the fact that our emissions are dynamic to the amount of people playing the game and not static, you're going to see a different type of valuation to our coin. In other words, it's not going to inflate because the software that's being developed won't allow it to. I mean, it's math. It's all math. So, we have a choice. We can either make it sustainable so that it's a reward on top of enjoyable gameplay, or we can make it unsustainable where the first people in get paid a lot of money and then the last people out don't, and so I don't see for us, I know especially for us moderators that have been involved with this, we're putting a lot of effort in because we see the long-term benefit of a sustainable ecosystem. And I just don't, I don't know how many people really understand the amount of effort that has been going in, to the game in terms of people building it and
Yeah, and I also wanted to point out that the only reason we compare, or we are being compared to Axie, I believe, is the fact that Axie is the most well-known and likely the most popular play-to-earn project at the moment. It's not really that we have that much in common with Axie, I think. It's just that we have no other project to compare ourselves to. So it's kind of, it's the closest we get to comparing, but it's not like we are directly competing with Axie because we
right.
They are two completely different games and completely different tokenomics, and people can definitely enjoy both. Like we are not trying to steal players from Axie in that sense. Like we're not competing in that sense. It's just like, can we get as popular as Axie, and I definitely like it. It is my personal opinion that we can totally do that if we can get enough reach.
Yeah, actually, I believe very much the same thing, and so part of the too is the amount that it costs to break into the game or to get into the game, and it's very important to us that it's accessible, right? And so I think having different tiers of accessibility to different investor types, and when it comes to the NFT part of the game, makes it super accessible to everybody. Like you don't have to have $2,000 to start playing our game. Like at the moment, I think we're sitting around $160, which has been announced for anybody to just jump in, get 4 characters, and start playing. And add that to the ability for us to be on multiple chains and not just one chain. And I think you see the potential of bringing people into the game itself and trying to get rid of the gatekeeping roadblocks, if you will, when it comes to like minimum amount of money you have to have, to be able to play the game. And that's not what this is about for us,
Yeah, and you can kind of just play on the chain that you want to. Like if let's say we were launching on Ethereum as well, if Ethereum is too expensive, then you just go to another chain that's more in where it's payable. Like I can't afford to do much on Ethereum. It's like one transaction and then I have to wait a month to get like money for the next one or something. But then I can just go to Polygon or Avalanche or Phantom. I haven't really worked much with Avalanche yet, so for me I'm most familiar with Phantom and Polygon, so like those would be my obvious choices. But I think the fact that we have so much compatibility between that is gonna be great. Not only can we reach the people who are on those chains, but we can also give people, like our players, the freedom to either stay in the ecosystem that they're used to or choose the ecosystem that best fits their style, so to speak. And you can, like at any time, you can just switch to a different ecosystem and you should be able to bring all your stuff with you. And not to mention that you can still play with people in other ecosystems. Like one having characters on Polygon can play with another one having characters on Phantom. Stuff like that.
So I'm going to address a bigger portion. Axie was just an example. There are many in your position right now, meaning not launched yet. So a couple things on that. We're super close to launching and not like, hey, give us money for NFTs and maybe we'll give you a product in 2 years. And also, this isn't a coin flip game. So, if your intent was to buy a game and just let it idle, that's not going to work here. Our game has AI, it has skills, it has strategies. There's, you're not going to be able to just sit there and let it do its thing. It's going to be like playing Final Fantasy. For anyone that's familiar with those kind of, Japanese role-playing games.
And I think that's also one of the interesting things about Eternity, because the reason we can't speculate much on Eternity is because we don't really know how people are gonna accept it. Because for all we know, we might be working on a project that no one even asked for. Like once people figure out exactly what this is, they might be like, well, I can't just idle this, so I'm not interested in this. Like this is an actual game that you play, and we don't really have much. I don't think I've seen any like actual games on blockchain yet where you actually actively play the game to earn. And like I hope you guys understand what I mean. But we just don't, like, we don't have that kind of thing to compare ourselves to. We don't have a clear answer to say that we are solving this problem that people have put up, because this concept of having an actual like video game that you play and not just some game where you stake something and then something happens and then you get something out of it, like that's what people know as play to earn, which is also why we try to go more in the direction of play and earn, because that more clearly informs the player that they actually have to play to earn here. It's not just it's not just a game running in the background and you earning money from it.
Right. And I'm sure that there'll be more, games that are I'm sure they're in development right now, where there'll be an actual game overlaid with blockchain interaction, and that's what our game is. It's just a little bit ahead of the game, if you will, when it comes to the player interaction part. So if you don't like Japanese role-playing games, chances are you're not going to like this game. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone likes different games. Some people like first-person shooters. Some people like strategy games. But having said that, there are thousands of games that are developed every year, and people spend billions of dollars on them. I'm not terribly concerned with the competition on the blockchain market because it's so new right now that there's so much room for growth.
No.
And if we can execute a game that plays like a game that people enjoy playing, that has great background and lore and characterization, and they can make a return on their investment, I feel like that puts us in a good category.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, so the way that I see Eternity as well is in traditional games, you pay for the game, then you play the game, and if the game doesn't have a high replayability, then once you have like completed the game, you're kind of done with it. It's just sitting there collecting dust until eventually you will have a nostalgia trip where you play the game again. Where Eternity and other NFT-based games, for that matter, here you buy into the game, and then you play the game as much as you want, and then you can decide like I just want to sell my stuff, and you might even make money not only playing the game but also on selling your assets afterwards because you're tired of the game now. You've gotten what you wanted out of it, and now you're selling it, and because you have leveled up your characters and like gotten maybe even got lucky and got some rare items and stuff, like you can actually make more money than you paid for the game initially, just because of how this entire thing works. And it's not even like some magic that happens. It's because you actually own the things that you buy. You're not just you're not just paying to be able to play the game. You actually own the things that you use to play the game, and you can sell that to the next guy at any moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a different way,
Mhm.
where we're funding the game. The
Mhm.
players are,
Mhm.
So that's just a different concept than traditional, where the people who have the capital, the shareholders, and the developers who make the game get 100% of the revenue, and the retailers that resell it.
Yeah.
In our game, it stays 80% of it stays in the game. I just feel like I just want to hammer on that because
Yeah.
I think it's such a big deal.
I think that's
80%
what
stays in the game.
that's what's gonna set Eternity apart from other NFT projects, is how much money is actually put back into the players, and not a treasury that is only for the developers or something.
Right.
I'm not really sure how it works in other platforms, but I assume they are just like collecting some money for salaries and stuff, where a big portion of Eternity will go back to sustain our tokenomics, which is why the whole thing is sustainable in the first place. So not only can you resell your characters, which you own when you buy them, but you do also participate in receiving, like under the correct circumstances, you can actually participate in receiving the profits of Eternity. So it doesn't, like all the profits don't go to the devs or to the team. It
Right.
Like as Taluvia said, 80% goes back. And a way that you can get a hold of some of this revenue is by holding Glory, for example, with the buybacks.
Yep.
And possibly other ways too. I don't have the whole tokenomics chart in my head, but I was also thinking maybe we could discuss that, because I saw another question related to it. Bigger portion asked, is it possible to share some details about the emissions dynamics? And I think maybe if we look at the tokenomics chart, we might be able to explain some things so it makes more sense. I know we also had some questions in the Treasury chat about it. Maybe just to clarify those on an episode of the Heroes Table, so people can refer to that as well.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to put it on stream, but I don't have a good way to obtain it on my computer while I'm streaming. Maybe can you send the image to me in our Discord chat that we have, like where just the two of us are in? Because then I should be able to get it. Then I can just show it on the stream while we discuss it. I think it'll make more sense than us just talking about it without any visual.
Yeah, let me. I forgot that I made it for the other.
But yeah, one of
chat.
Yeah. So one of the benefits of Eternity, or one of the strong suits, I would say, of Eternity, is the revenue that goes back to the players. another thing is also the player-driven emissions, which are the ones that we're going to be talking about. Let me just
Did you get that?
save this image. Yes, I did get it.
So the reason, I mean, I don't have all of the math for the emissions. I mean, that's above my intelligence level. All I have is the tokenomics and our conversations with the developers. And what I understand is that the problem with so many things in the crypto world is that you have emissions that outpace revenue. It's why everything fails. I mean, it is just, I mean, it's science, right? Like, you cannot give out more than you bring in. It's impossible.
It's math, basically. It's basic math.
It's just math. Yeah, it's basic. You run this like a business and you're not going to go out of business. What that means is that revenue that comes in must exceed money that goes out. And our tokenomics are designed specifically for that.
Yes.
So that the quantity of people that play the game and buy into the game has a direct relationship to the glory that's emitted. So that, will we have crazy high APRs? I don't know. I doubt it, because that's usually a sign of something you should be concerned about, because it's unsustainable. You know, I mean, we might see high valuations of glory because people speculate on what the game's going to be worth someday. But as far as like out of the gate, it just wouldn't make sense for it to be insanely high. You know, otherwise you're going to deplete the treasury and the game will die. And so I mean, now don't get me wrong, there's some people that are perfectly happy with that. There's people going to come in our Discord and be like, oh, I can't make a ton of money and get out, so I'm not interested, and that's fine. You know,
definitely.
We're interested in people that want to play a game and then get a little bit on the side for doing that. And so,
Eternity is definitely not meant to be a get-rich-quick thing. I guess that is totally possible. Again, it's all math, so depending on how early you get in, you might get some advantages, because I don't actually know. Yeah, again,
it's hard to say. I mean,
we don't have all the math either, so we might also be limited in what we can explain, but we can definitely try. So I put on the stream now the tokenomics page, and in short, it basically just shows the revenue generators and how that revenue is used, basically. Yes, and the dynamic emissions are basically the two adventure rewards.
Yes.
And I guess glory from nodes as well. I'm not too familiar with all the details about glory from nodes. I'm not sure if those details are completely finished. But the adventure rewards will be like the main emissions that will be dynamic depending on how many players we have. Correct. And one of the questions that we had in the Treasury chat is also, because in the white paper we describe that glory will be reused from the Treasury, so not all rewards that are being paid out is minted. Sometimes it is reused. So someone was a bit confused as to the 20% going back to the Treasury from that section. And I don't know if this was confirmed. I think it was, but essentially that only goes for minting. So if you have a reward that says you get 100 glory tokens, then the protocol will actually mint 120 tokens, and then it'll send 100 to you, and then the remaining 20 will go to the Treasury. Of course, this will not be the case, I believe, if the tokens are reused, because it doesn't make sense that it pulls an extra 20% out of the Treasury to put it back. So at least that makes sense logically. I don't know if we have that confirmed with the devs, though, but logically that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I do believe that when we chatted about that, they did say that. So it's only on the minting.
So, bigger portion, do you have like specific questions about these emissions dynamics? So we can try to be more concrete. In essence, the dynamic emissions are going to be glory tokens emitted depending on how many players. I'm not sure if we count like how many unique players we have or how many active. I suppose how many active players. That would make the most sense to me, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So, and that also might make it close to impossible to actually estimate an APY in the first place for glory, at least for rewards, because they're dynamic in the first place, and I don't know if there is an easy way to calculate that, because it also depends on when people complete battles.
Yep.
So it's going to be very complicated, at least. I am also, I think the 20% also goes for the glory nodes. So if
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure, but I think glory nodes, that's when you buy glory, right? Or the
There'll be
like,
times when you can get notes that will give you glory.
So I think the closest we can compare this to is bonding, but it won't be available all the time.
Correct.
It'll be like on a per need basis. So if we need, for some reason, more glory to be minted, like for example, rewards are not being produced, maybe I don't know, too few people are playing or something. Maybe this will only happen in the beginning when we don't have many players, and then it'll like kind of even out, and then everything will shift over to rewards exclusively. But basically, it's going to be kind of like bonds, where you can, I guess, like it'll accept some payment and you will get some glory, and I guess it'll mint some extra to the treasury as well, the 20% extra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's important here to stress that this is not a permanent thing. It will be enabled and disabled as needed, which is, it's probably not going to be needed a lot.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I thought if some actual numbers can be shared, but you already answered that. It's not important to know at this stage. Yeah, so yeah, again, the numbers will be difficult to calculate. Well, at least how, like at least an emission schedule will be very difficult to put out, because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, like it's gonna change dynamically. So, like the best you could do is probably have like a static number that you did an estimate on, and that's the best you could do. But I mean, the easy way to think about it is that the money going out is never going to be more than the money coming in. I mean, just the simplest way to look at it is, and that creates a treasury that's sustainable. I don't, what the actual percentages are end up being when it comes to the reward part, I don't know, but we do know that 52.5% goes to the paired glory, 27.5% goes to the glory buyback.
Yep.
So to me, those are the two main things to keep in mind.
Yes.
Because it's creating a pretty massive floor. If you think about it, for all the revenue that comes in. So and this is just me speculating, so don't like take this as, investment advice. But if what this says is true, then 80% of the treasury goes to paired glory and glory buyback. So, I mean, $10 million in revenue means $8 million in paired glory and glory buyback,
Definitely.
right? I mean, think about that. So just, and the bigger it gets, the bigger the treasury gets. I mean, I don't know. Is there another game that's doing that? Maybe, but to me, it shows that our developers are thinking about long-term value and not short-term pump dump. Thank you for playing. The game's over, and I don't know how to stress, to me how important that is.
And I think this also highlights our devs' focus on tokenomics first. Like the game is made with tokenomics in mind. It's not we make a game and then as an afterthought we also we need to put some tokenomics on it. Like it's very well integrated, the tokenomics and the game.
Yes.
At least the design of the tokenomics. I don't even know how much of this is even like being is even done, because I assume they have spent a lot of time on the game mostly. But I don't think it'll actually take that much time to make these tokenomics either.
I know that part of this here that we can't get into because of things that we just can't talk about, but partnerships and chains that we work with and other entities are going to play an impact in the reward schedule. Because we don't know, what will be agreed upon.
Yeah.
So we can't really speculate on any of that. All we know is that those conversations are happening.
I just really quick want to address some questions here. Cosmic Fire, the diagram that I have on stream right now is also in the Treasury chat channel on the Discord. And for bigger portion is saying, I think all serious teams are trying to nail the sustainability. It is not easy with whales entering and exiting. And I think that is mostly correct, but I don't think I agree 100% because in Eternity at least, it'll be difficult for a whale to obtain a large quantity of glory tokens without buying them. And if you sell bought tokens, it's not really a problem because it won't really hurt the token as much, right, because the tokens are bought in the first place. The problem is if you have a lot of minted tokens that you dump, then it's bad for the token. So I think it'll be really I think Eternity will inherently be maybe not like whale safe, but it'll be well protected against whale games, I believe. Of course, they can still do their pumps and dumps, but I mean that's just normal market thing.
So a lot of what was learned by the team, through the iteration of Augury was how do whales affect things?
Mm-hmm.
How do emissions affect APR? The quantity of people, how many people hold it in the wallet? How much volume is all that stuff? We went through all that with Augury, and it's all been learned and incorporated into this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard for a whale to move glory if so much of it is paired in the treasury. It's like they're going to be able to buy it and sell it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But the treasury is buying back 27.5% of glory all the time.
Yes.
Just got to think about it like that. It's a little bit different, than what most protocols are doing with their revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not 15%, it's 80%.
So we also have a question. Bigger portion asks, so the private sold glory will enter the ecosystem within the game, or is that just pure long-term investment? So I don't know if we have all the details of the private sold glory fleshed out, but at least it makes sense to me that there would be some agreement that whoever buys buys on private sales don't dump on everyone immediately. I don't know if it'll be through some vesting thing, or they will be locked for a certain amount of time, or how it's gonna work, but I don't think yeah, depends who the buyer is going to be, of course. But I don't know if those details are finalized. But those would be my ideas as to how that could work, so it's still safe for the players.
Exactly. Yeah. What you just said. So some of this stuff's still being worked out, and so we can't give you a hard answer, but we understand as people who also are looking to invest in this that we don't want to be the people that get dumped on either. So, I mean, we're that, we're helpful in that we're that voice that the devs get, hit to listen to every day. It's like, hey, we're going to be playing this game just like everybody else, and we need to make sure that it's sustainable in every aspect, or else all of this will be for nothing,
And I think, I don't know if it's important, but I think it's also worth mentioning that we are also not, like, we don't have paid positions on the team. So, like, we don't benefit from like additional things. Like, we don't get paid salaries and stuff. So we benefit just as much as all the other players. And therefore, we of course have the same interests as the players, because it's not like we are gonna win regardless. Like if our players don't win, then we also don't win. So
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I think that's one reason why the developers brought in, us, is to have that voice. I mean, they hear us every day.
Yeah, definitely
every day. And so we've been in the crypto world a while now and seen things come and go, farming and yield farming and ohm forks and all that stuff, and we all have the same attitude, and that is that you can't pay out more than you bring in. I mean, that's the mantra.
And of course we also want the game to be the best that it can be, so that we can reach the most people. Obviously Eternity is not going to be for everyone. Maybe it will be in the future, who knows, but at least the initial version of Eternity is not going to be for everyone. There's going to be this guy somewhere who just doesn't like this type of game, and that's fine. I don't think we're trying right now, at least, to appeal to everyone. We're just trying to appeal to as many as possible, and we try to value those that are looking for this. And the rest, we are kind of like, okay, we can look into like what your needs are, and then we can see if it fits with our roadmap or something, and then maybe one day Eternity will also be for you. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. If the game is good enough for people to spend money on to enjoy it, it's a winner, 100%.
Well, and that's exactly right, because that's normal. People spend money to play games. So if the game's fun and you can make some money playing it, I think that's going to say a lot.
Definitely. So yeah, we are running out of time here. I know it's exciting to talk about it, and I want to continue forever, but we do also have our time slot. So I don't know if you have any closing comments before we end.
Oh, just thanks for listening. We got way off floor topic, but that's okay. I'm sure we will be doing that over the next 5 to 6 weeks anyway. So.
Yeah, we have. I think we have a bunch of interesting things planned. We'll see how many of those things gets to fruition, but yeah, I'm sure we can make a bunch of interesting episodes, especially up to the launch as well, and even further than that. So.
Yep. Yeah, and we did read all of your comments about marketing.
Yes.
We didn't say anything about it because we really can't, but we are aware, and it's part of the game plan, and we are talking to lots of people.
Yeah, the only thing I can say is that I'm sure you guys are gonna like what we have in store once we finally get to reveal some of the details.
Yep. That's all I got.
Yes. All right. As always, make sure you follow us in the various places that you see us at. If you use Twitter, then make sure you follow us on Twitter. think it's Eternity RPG, and also Eternity RPG on Discord. And if you are on the Discord, you can find all the links and socials on there as well. So Discord is probably the best place to be, at least initially, and you can branch out from there. You already know the Twitch account, and if you're watching this on YouTube later, then you already know the YouTube account. Otherwise, it is on Twitch at least, also Eternity RPG. And I don't know if the YouTube channel is also Eternity RPG, or if that was already taken. But again, those will be on the Discord as well. Am I forgetting anything? Instagram? Is it Eternity _ RPG?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's the whole way around. So yeah, thank you guys for coming by, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and all the other week's episodes. And I hope to see you again next Sunday for another exciting episode.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.